I've got Nez again for today's episode. She's very ready for what we're going to read today. It's a beautiful day today, and we're going to read some stuff once again that definitely is not beautiful. Yesterday's episode was so fun, and ever since I filmed that episode, I've wanted to make this second episode. It feels so good to be making these sorts of episodes again. Okay, let's get into it. Am I the gay hole for telling my sister who can't have kids that she does not get to be a part of naming mine and my wife's babies? My older sister, 34 female, was born without the reproductive organs required to have biological children, and because of her condition, she also has some other health issues that disqualify her from adopting due to the uncertainty around her quality and length of life. She was aware for most of her life that she couldn't have biological children. That was discovered when she was still very young, but the rest came out in her 20s. She had dreams of motherhood and had lists of baby names that she wanted to use, but she'll never be able to use them on children that are hers. What I-28 male did not know at the time was that she'd saved her baby names and was hoping that she'd get to name or help name my future children. Yeah, okay, so that's okay if you have hopes of doing that, but I feel like that's one of those things where if the couple says no, you can't get upset at them for that decision. My wife, 27 female, and I are expecting our first child. We haven't announced the sex, but my sister thinks that we're having a girl, and she shared her girl names with us. We thanked her and said that we, my wife and I, would discuss what the name would be at some point. My sister looked upset by the response, and then she shared her boy names thinking that she got it wrong. We gave her the same response. My mum suggested a couple of months ago that it would be generous and kind to let my sister have some input. I told her that we felt it was better if we named our child ourselves. Yeah, definitely. What are you talking about? It's not a group project. You and your wife get to choose. If the sister does have a name that everybody likes, then that's awesome. But if it doesn't work out like that, that just is what it is. My wife and I did look at the list just to see if we liked any of the names, and we did not. The names on the list were Elizabeth, Hannah, Rosemary, and Francesca for girls, and then James, Edward, Patrick, and Michael for boys. Those just aren't to our preference. None of them were, and there were more names. My sister mentioned the names again recently, and she said that she would pick Elizabeth for a girl and Michael for a boy. She said that's what she would do if it were her having the baby. I told her that we hadn't made our mind up yet, but we were still in discussion about it. She offered to help, and I said no thanks. My wife and I want to figure it out between us. My sister said that she wants to be a part of naming all of our babies, that she'd love to share all of her endless thoughts on names that she'll never get to put into her own kid. I told her I understood that she wanted that, but my wife and I as parents would name our child, and she does not get to be a part of it. I told her I understood that was hurtful to her, but she doesn't really get a say. I also asked her to stop bringing it up. My sister told me that I could let her have at least a little say in this, and I said no, sorry, but no. She cried to mum, who thinks that we should be more sensitive, while my dad told my sister that I wasn't wrong and she needs to accept that she doesn't get to name our baby. My response has caused a divide among my parents and my sister and me. It's been made clear that my mum thinks that I lack compassion, and my sister believes that I'm hurtful to her. Am I the gay hole? No, definitely not. No, OP, you're not in the wrong here. You haven't said anything out of line. Your sister keeps on pushing and not taking the hint. You've put a boundary in place here, OP, and you've said that you don't want her to help name the baby, that she doesn't get to do that it's you and your partner's child and not their child. I feel like that's completely reasonable. Of course, you feel bad for the sister, and of course it is sad that they can't have kids of their own, but it's pretty rude to think that you're entitled to help name somebody else's child when they don't want that. Come on. This comment says, not the a-hole. It is sad when somebody's childbearing preferences in any direction aren't possible or aren't allowed, and then adding in not being able to adopt makes that sadness even greater, but that doesn't mean that she gets to take over parts of other people's experience of having children. You tried to be diplomatic, but her insistence has forced a conflict. Maybe you could have found gentler, kinder words, but I don't think any way you could have worded it would have prevented the hurt. Yeah, definitely, that's such a good comment. I don't feel like OP worded it that bad, but yeah, like that comment says, no matter how you worded it, it was still definitely gonna hurt. But also, I feel like that's the issue here too, the expectation. Is that entitlement? I don't know if it's entitlement or not, but they shouldn't really be that upset at OP saying no to this. They should never really be expecting to be able to name somebody else's child. When OP and their partner have said no here, the sister definitely should be understanding of that and be like, okay, no worries. I understand that I'm not entitled to name your child. The top comment says, not the a-hole. Congratulations on your upcoming baby. And also on setting and keeping personal boundaries. Of course, your sister shouldn't be involved in decisions about rearing your child, including its name. It's very sad about your sister's condition, but that doesn't change anything. Your mum's being weird though, getting involved and trying to guilt you. Your dad is right, and you're right for setting a reasonable boundary together with your wife and sticking to it together. OP said, I think my mum is putting some of her own heartache into the mix. She struggled with secondary infertility between having my sister and having me. I think it can make her more sensitive to what my sister is going through and make her more willing to think that she should be accommodated, but it really isn't helping anybody. Yeah, you and your partner OP shouldn't have to feel bad about this. Once again, it is really sad about the sister, sister. But OP and OP's partner shouldn't have to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, no, you don't get to name my child. Like, no, of course you don't get to name our child. We don't need to apologize about that. This comment says not the a-hole. It's a touch odd that she's so fixated on letting her choose the name of your children as opposed to expressing the desire to be an active and awesome aunt. I very much sympathize with her predicament, but that doesn't mean that she gets to name your kids. If she does want to name living things so much, she could get cats or dogs or her chosen preference of pets. OP said, I think for her, using the names that she'd chosen would bring her some happiness. So much that she's wishing that we'd let her do it for our child and future children, but it's not something that we'll okay. And I wish she could find some acceptance for that because I think it's adding to her hope. This wish for us to just change our mind when it's not gonna happen. Yeah, and that's completely fine. No, I definitely don't feel like you're the a-hole here, OP. Hopefully your sister understands more or something. I don't know. But yeah, congratulations on your baby, OP. Nez is sitting right next to me, so I better grab her before we start the next post. Here she is. Hello, Nez. You're on the camera again. Hey, say hi to everybody. Hey, guys. These are my fat baby paws. Hey, dudes. Isn't she beautiful? She's touching the microphone. What are you going to say, Nez? Welcome back, everybody. Subscribe if you want to subscribe. Every time you subscribe, I get more kibbles. And now I'm covered in cat hair. Okay, so post number 2 is an update post to one that we read that was called, Am I the a-hole for completely cutting my wife off from our finances because she wouldn't stop ordering takeout food? I think I'll read that post again really fast before we read the update. From memory, that was a pretty wild post. Am I the a-hole for completely cutting my wife off from our finances because she wouldn't stop ordering takeout? I'm 41 and male, and my wife is 39 years old. My wife doesn't work due to a minor disability. It's not as if she can't work, but she complains of discomfort and exhaustion all the time. The discussion over her working basically ended 5 years ago, and I've completely given up on the prospect of her ever having a job again. Seeing as she doesn't even come close to qualifying for disability and brings in no income, we live entirely off my salary. I don't mind financially supporting her, but her spending habits have become more and more reckless. It began with her ordering takeout twice a week, and then that escalated into 3 times a week, and then now she's ordering takeout nearly every day. This is all despite our fridge being stocked constantly. I do the shopping, and I make sure to even keep our freezer full of stuff that she'd only have to microwave. Last month was a particularly heavy one for her. She spent $1,176 on delivery apps alone. We can't afford this. There were several days that she ordered twice. I may have reacted harshly, but on Friday I pulled money out of the savings, completely paid off the card, and then I cancelled it. I then removed all the money from our joint account and I funneled it into my own account. Apparently my wife learnt this when she tried to order takeout. She tried to call the company who explained the card had been cancelled. She texted me asking what had happened, and I responded that she was cut off. Well, when I walked in the door that evening, my wife was laying on the floor dramatically, saying that she had low blood sugar. I told her that she could eat any of the food that we have in our fridge or freezer. I also noticed that she took the garbage out, probably for the first time in a decade. I'm surprised that she even knew where the outdoor bin was. I can only assume that she was disposing of the evidence of what she ate, as she was pretending to have not eaten anything, but I don't care enough to dig through the garbage to find it. She was furious at me all weekend. Was what I did over the top? Yeah, a very wild post, but now we have an update to read. I'm so excited to read this. 9 days ago, I made a post about how my unemployed wife had spent $1,176 on delivery apps in just a month. This is egregiously outside of what we can afford to spend on takeout, and since she didn't seem willing to stop, I cancelled our credit card and I moved the money from our joint account into my own account. For the following few days, my wife kept on talking about how I was financially abusing her. She threw several tantrums despite apparently being severely malnourished, was threatening divorce, threw a bunch of food that we had in the fridge away to try and strong-arm me into letting her get takeout, and even tried to guess my bank account password a bunch of times. In brackets, sorry that my password isn't Taco Bell 123. That last one was how I learnt that if you try to guess somebody's bank account password enough times, the bank will send them an automated email. But last Friday, the complaints and the threats stopped. She seemed mainly back to normal. I figured that she'd given up. That was until today, which was garbage day. When I took the last bag out before taking the bin down to the curb, I discovered half a dozen fast food bags and other takeout containers in it. My wife wasn't supposed to have access to money. I had no idea how she was affording the food. I confronted her about it and she first denied everything. I had to bring all of her fast food garbage in to get her to fess up. She had taken out a loan. Oh my God. Now, I thought she'd borrowed money from a friend or a family member, but she'd taken out one of those predatory payday loans. Before you start asking, no, I've got no idea how she was approved. Within the next hour, I froze my credit and I then drove her to the payday loan office where I paid the loan off in cash, and I'll now have to dip further into my savings to pay the rent. I suppose in a certain way, cutting her off was successful. She didn't order takeout anymore. She just drove to the restaurants to pick up her food for the low price of $20 for every 100 that she borrowed, or $60 in fees in total total. In addition, I told her that we'd be getting divorced. So yeah, my marriage is over. I don't even know what alimony laws in my state are like, but I assume that she'll happily live in a cardboard box under a bridge if Uber Eats will deliver her food there. Oh my god, I didn't really see that coming, but I feel like I probably should have. That's so unbelievable. So like a proper takeaway addiction. And not just that, but one bad enough to ruin the whole relationship. This comment says, I think divorce is the best course of action here. She needs professional help, but that's not your problem anymore. I'm glad you took steps to protect yourself financially. Sadly, there is fundamentally something wrong, and soon she will self-destruct, starting with the divorce. And OP left a big comment here. When I paid off the payday loan, I decided that would be the last thing that I ever did for her. It was far more than what she deserved. My sister's been addicted to heroin for over 20 years. I haven't talked to her in about a decade, but this was the kind of crap that she would pull. I remember how she and her loser boyfriend would steal stuff from my room to pawn so they could buy more drugs, and I honestly wouldn't put it past my wife at this point to start stealing my stuff so that she could buy more Chipotle. I'm sorry, I'm just so furious. As I worked every day, my wife sat around ordering takeout and living like a queen, and when the almost literal gravy train stopped, she decided to imperil our financial future for more food, and my god, she has gotten so fat she's basically waddling around like a penguin. But what really pisses me off is that after taking out that payday loan, instead of putting it into a new account to order takeout food, she went to the restaurant drive-thrus. It was like she wanted to stretch it for as long as she possibly could, which wasn't an issue when it was money that I earned. She knew that the payday loan was probably a one-time Hail Mary, so she actually, in her own twisted little way, tried to exercise financial responsibility. People in the last post yelled at me for not communicating. We'd fought about this dozens of times. Every time the credit card bill rolled in, I'd tell her she needed to stop, that we were losing everything because of her habit. I told her again and again and again, but she didn't give a shit. She needed more of that garbage. I honestly don't give a If she's depressed, I don't care. If she's agoraphobic, which I doubt, I don't care. She's never shown even the slightest bit of remorse. Eventually, even my sister with her heroin-addled brain apologized for stealing my GameCube. My wife couldn't even do that. She's a lazy piece of faking a disability, and people were blaming me as if that absolved her of all wrongdoing. If that makes me an a-hole, fine. I'm not up the rest of my life because of some dim-witted sloth with a disability that can only muster up the energy to get off her ass when it involves food that she bought with money that somebody else earned. Wow, okay. Yeah, that was an unbelievable update. That's so wild. It's also wild that they weren't apologetic at all. Yeah, I don't really know what to say after reading what we just read. I don't know a lot about food addiction or really addiction at all, but yeah, that's so terrible. I feel like that tantrum they had in the first post where they were laying on the floor was such a red flag, because yeah, I remember people in the comments on the first post saying that they were a leech and immature and manipulative, and yeah, to be not sorry at all and show absolutely no remorse, that's kind of terrifying. Okay, moving on. Am I the gay hoffer asking my girlfriend to stop hugging a guy that she hooked up with? Oh, okay, already don't want to read this. My girlfriend, 30 female and I 32 male, keep on coincidentally running into a guy that she hooked up with about a year ago before we were dating. Every time they notice each other, they exchange a hug and a few words. There's nothing flirtatious about the hugs, but it makes me uncomfortable knowing that they hooked up and that she feels the need to hug him instead of just waving and saying hi in passing. I think the first time was understandable, but we run into him fairly often. I've voiced my discomfort about it several times, and she feels like it's unreasonable for me to ask her to not hug him when she sees him. She even told me that I should be more friendly during the encounters. I should also mention that it's a guy that she once described to me as somebody I would be intimidated by. Ew, are you joking? Which she promptly apologized about. Another reason it rubs me wrong. Am I the gay hole for wanting her to stop hugging the dude? No, you're not the a-hole, OP. Ew. That is so unbelievably gross. It's a guy that she once described to me as somebody I would be intimidated by. Ugh. Get out of here with that. And both of you guys are 30. You're too old to be doing this sort of immature crap. No, I don't feel like you're overreacting at all. That would make anybody uncomfortable. It's not like you're insecure or something. There's nobody that I run into often that I hug every single time I see them. That's completely inappropriate and completely unnecessary, and also doesn't listen to you even though you've said that it makes you uncomfortable more than a few times. Like you said here, OP, it happens pretty often. I have voiced my discomfort about it several times, and she feels like it's unreasonable for me to ask her to not hug him when she sees him. What is your partner hanging on to here, OP? The disrespect disrespect here is wild. Yeah, like this comment says, she has no self-awareness at all. This is a guy that you'd be intimidated by. Proceeds to hug and converse with him at any chance that she gets. Yeah, no. Completely disrespectful and too old to be doing crap like this. This is some gross, immature stuff. Not something you should be dealing with in your 30s. Yeah, like this comment says, not the a-hole dude. You're too old to be playing these games. Yeah, and from the sound of it, OP's partner respects this other guy more than they respect OP. If that's not messed up, I don't know what is. Yeah, I feel like this comment sums it up. Reflect on why hugging him is more important to her than your feelings. Yeah, the disrespect here is wild. And if you were doing this to a girlfriend that you had in the past, OP, or a woman that you hooked up with shortly before you got together with your partner, that would be just as messed up and just as disrespectful. Do that though. Ask your partner how they'd feel if you did this to them. Oh yeah, that one made me sad. Like if this happened one time, it'd be completely different, but there are many different red flags here. Number one is it's happened multiple different times. OP has said how uncomfortable they are about it and they keep not listening. OP's partner said it's somebody you'd be intimidated by, which means what really? And yet OP's partner keeps on disrespecting OP. Like yeah, if it happened one time and OP's partner was understanding of how OP felt and they realized that it was inappropriate for them to hug the person they were banging just before they got together with OP all the time and every time they see them, and they were like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah, okay, then it wouldn't be an issue. But it's like OP's partner is trying to disrespect OP to his face. I don't feel like it's a stretch to say that OP's partner probably wants to be with this other guy more, and yeah, that's uncomfortable to even read about. I can't even imagine how uncomfortable that makes OP. Okay, the next one that we're going to read is called Am I the Gay Hoe for Making My Stepmother Cry in Front of Her Family? My 16-male mum died when I was 5. When I was 8, my dad remarried. He started dating my stepmother a year before, and he talked to me and my sister, 24 female, about it before. He told us that we didn't need to see our stepmother as a new mum, or even a mother figure at all if we weren't comfortable, but if we could be respectful and give her a chance to be something. He told us if there was anything off, he wanted to hear that too. We gave our blessing while also saying that we didn't want her to be our new mum, and Dad said that he supported that and would make that clear to her. They got married and things seemed okay. Dad never called her our mum or anything, and she didn't really. There were times that she called us her kids, and she'd try to do some of the mum things like Mother's Day activities, or sometimes we'd have stuff like a parent-kid sports day, and she'd want to go instead of our dad, because quote-unquote most kids have their mum, but Dad would gently remind her that she wasn't mum. My sister and stepmother had a really rocky, rough relationship, and they don't speak much. My sister tolerated her for Dad after the wedding more than anything, but at first she was okay with her. She just hated that she didn't accept the no mum role. We spent after school with our grandparents until Dad got home. He'd finished work before my stepmom, so she wasn't doing all the mum stuff. She did offer to quit her job to do it or go part-time or something, but Dad and her talked and he asked if she'd be okay doing all of that and not getting recognized equally, so she kept her job but still tried to fill the mum role sometimes. My dad and her started trying for kids and they ended up going to fertility doctors and stuff. Even when that was happening, she still tried to fill that role for me, but I still don't want her to be mum. The problem now is she can't have biological kids. Nothing can help. Dad's been comforting her about it, but now she's decided that I could let her adopt me and that we could work on changing our relationship. I said no when asked and I told Dad. He decided they needed couples therapy. We were at her family's house Sunday afternoon and they were talking to her about the infertility stuff, and she'd mentioned that she still has one kid, aka me, and that we were maybe making that official, and even if we didn't, she was still mum to somebody. It annoyed me and my dad wasn't in the room at the time, and I said no. Her family all looked at me and I said that she isn't my mum and we'll never make it official because it's not true. She started crying hard and my dad heard and came in and he brought us home. They got into a big fight that night and my dad told me that I did nothing wrong, but she said that I humiliated her in front of her family. So am I the a-hole? No, I don't feel like you're the a-hole, OP. You've said again and again and again that you don't want her to be your mum. She's the one who's not respecting that boundary. Yeah, the top comment, not the a-hole. I can't imagine how crushing her pain must be, and I do feel for her, but that doesn't mean she gets to break your boundaries and use you as a band-aid. You're not a consolation prize. Her behavior was absolutely atrocious. My dad told me I did nothing wrong. I have to say, it's so refreshing to see a parent encourage and support healthy boundaries when push comes to shove. OP, I assure you, you didn't do anything wrong. It may not seem like it now, but you're doing her a favor by not encouraging a false hope of adoption. Yeah, that's a good point too. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, especially given the fact that you were surrounded by her family. And OP said, oh yeah, my dad's great. I don't ever feel like I can't tell him this stuff. Sometimes it's easier to go to him with it than to speak to my stepmom, at least with some stuff. Yeah, that comment made a really good point. It's a good thing that you're not encouraging any false hope. And yeah, it's not like your stepmom didn't know how you felt about this, OP. The stepmom is the one who keeps on disrespecting this boundary that you've put in place. And yeah, you're definitely not the a-hole, OP. And after what we've read today, I've got two really cute wholesome memes. Oh yeah, this one is so cute. Nice duck returns boys flip-flop that fell down a hill. Peace is always an option. Yeah, what a beautiful little duck. Here you go, friend. Also, the goose game is such a fun game. When you get interrupted in a discussion and somebody brings up the topic again to make sure that you're heard. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Like, oh my god, you're listening to me. I really appreciate that. For real, that is a really good feeling. And yeah, it is nice when people do that. It's nice to be listened to. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you had a wonderful time today. And if you did, make sure you subscribe if you want to. And the comment of the day today goes to VVendetta69. I listen to Vincey while I'm in the shower so that I don't stay in there for 2 to 3 business days. The videos are my timer. Wow, that's so interesting. So because the episodes are always around 20 minutes, you use the episodes to know how long you've been in the shower? That's so clever. It's also funny that there are people out there having showers and I'm just rambling in the background. That's hilarious and I really appreciate the support. Okay, I'm out of here. That was such a fun episode and I'll see you in the next episode. Make sure you look after yourself, everybody, and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!